Happy New Year. Welcome to 2022. Welcome to Lessons for Life. And we are live. And I welcome back Mac. Are you there?
I am. How are you doing,
Fan-
Julian? Happy New Year.
Fantastic. I'm well, mate. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining me. Anyone else is welcome to join the conversation. Click the link in the description. You don't have to show your face. We can go audio only. Not a problem. And tonight we are congratulating Mr. Anthony Blair. That's Sir Tony to you. Because somehow he has made the New Year honours list and is now a knight of the realm. How does that one work, Mac? How does a mass murderer become a knight?
That's a very good question. I guess they're looking at more as the service that he did for the country, I guess.
Yeah. And you know what? If he'd been, God forbid, assassinated in the early part of 2001, I might have remembered him fondly as a great prime minister who did a lot for peace in Ireland. But after that, things went rapidly downhill, and he teamed up with George W. Bush to invade Iraq and kill 1 million people. And I just can't forgive him for it. I cannot. Never mind how people from Iraq might feel. It's pretty hard to imagine.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Assange was uncovering and giving us the footage of, is it not?
There you go.
Julian Assange.
And Blair gets a knighthood. Assange gets incarcerated. I think we've got Owen.
Hey there, can you guys hear me?
We're hearing you loud and clear, Owen. Welcome, mate. And I'm sure you're overjoyed on behalf of Anthony, who's a sir now.
I think it's the opposite of tremendous, I'd say.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, he's an interesting guy, Tony Blair, and he became a Catholic after he was prime minister. And this is something I've revisited several times. Is it possible for a Catholic to be the prime minister of England? There's some ancient rule that suggests the advisor to the monarch cannot be a Roman Catholic, hence why Tony Blair waited until he was done with being a prime minister to go from the Church of England to the Church of Rome. Boris Johnson, who was born and raised as a Roman Catholic, made the switch when he was about 18 and became Church of England, although he has since possibly gone back. We don't know, but I mean, he's not very religious. But is there something about being a Catholic and being the prime minister? Is it really an unwritten rule? And
I guess it goes back to Henry VIII, doesn't it?
Yeah, all the way back to Henry VIII. We haven't had an openly, officially Roman Catholic prime minister since that time. And even people speculated about Theresa May. What was her religious affiliation? But she was not Roman Catholic. Hannibal Ross Trill, yes, family. The war criminal allowed to evade justice. Yeah, war criminal. And what better word is there for Tony Blair? And he's also, don't forget, from Scotland. He's not English, although he's kind of got a posh accent from probably his upbringing and education. He's originally from Scotland. I think at least one of his grandparents was from Ireland. So he has some Irish heritage. And that's possibly why he took an interest in trying to solve the crisis in Ireland. And I think one of his grandparents was an orange man from Donegal, which is in the north of Ireland, although across the border in the Republic. And his Orange Order ancestor would be a loyalist in that sense. Even though Tony Blair, it would seem, having been a Labour Prime Minister, part of the Labour movement, you would perceive that as making him more in line with the nationalist movement, with the Republican movement, and more to being towards wanting a united Ireland, much like Jeremy Corbyn would be campaigning for. But in his ancestry, he certainly has a loyal Ulster Unionist, at least one ancestor, and I think that was why at one point Ian Paisley said he liked Tony Blair. We've got Annabelle in the chat now, I think. Are you there, Annabelle?
Yes, certainly, I'm here.
Good to have you with us, and Happy New Year.
Can you hear me, yeah?
Yeah, I can. We're hearing you loud and clear. Thank you.
Good, good.
You're not a fan of Tony, I take it. Go on, Annabelle.
Yeah, I'm really disgusted to see this guy that is still been evading justice for so long, you know?
What?
Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised at all.
I'm more surprised
PK
with Chris Whitty becoming Sir as well.
PK's asked a good question. Was Tony Blair Prime Minister during the Balkan War, Yugoslavia? Well, Tony Blair came to office in 1997. There was a war in the Balkans from 1995 through to, I think, 1999. So he presided over the latter part of the Balkans War and would have been involved in the bombing of Kosovo when they went after the Serbs in Kosovo. He wasn't involved when there was conflict in Bosnia, which was more in 1995. So that war, the war in the Balkans, spanned two different parties, two different prime ministers, from John Major through to Tony Blair. And yes, Blair was at the helm when bombs were dropped on Belgrade. And you know what? I'd overlooked that, PK, and maybe I'd forgiven Blair for that, or maybe that war, we don't think of it as being as unjustified as the war in Iraq. But I would have been against the bombing of Yugoslavia. I don't think you bomb your way to peace. I don't think that was a good move. Mohammed Omar is saying in the chat, why aren't the other hundreds of MPs blamed for voting in favour to invade Iraq due to weapons of mass destruction? Well, George Galloway said it. Every MP who voted for Mr. Bush and Blair's war have blood on their hands. But we like to scapegoat, don't we? We like to be reductionist. And if we can make it as simple as reducing it all to one man, rather like the way Hitler is held up as a kind of a caricature of all things evil, there would have been thousands, if not millions, of Nazi soldiers who were responsible for what happened in the Second World War, and everyday people who sat about and did nothing when that was happening. And when you watch a film like Schindler's List, we all think, yeah, I'd have been Schindler. I would have been helping the people. But would you? You don't really know until you are tested what you would do in any situation. And that's why I think we focus on these individuals. And I'm not looking to make excuses for Tony Blair. I think what he did was wrong. Do I feel guilt at not doing more to stop the invasion of Iraq? I expressed my dislike for the government at the time. I expressed my objection to the proposed invasion in whatever way that I could, and millions of people did, and it wasn't enough. And I think that's why a lot of people became very disaffected with politics, because they did everything they felt they could to prevent an illegal war based on lies, the liar, Tony Blair, and it still went ahead. So what do we do? What's it going to take? How do we it seems we can't vote our way out of these wars either. And we were very nearly taken over the cliff again with the proposed invasion of Syria. Luckily, it didn't happen, but we did support certain sides in that conflict. We did invade Libya and oust Colonel Gaddafi, and that was long after Tony Blair was gone. So he's not the entire problem. He's just one of the
thing is,
one of the symptoms of it. Hopefully, we'll get PK involved now if he can hear us and we can hear him. PK, you're in. Happy New Year.
No, go on though, Mac. What were you saying, Mac?
Okay.
Oh yeah, I hear you, PK. Go for it. PK, you're in. If you can hear us, go for it. Have I got you muted? Oh, I think PK's come and gone. But whoever's left in, we've got Mac, we've got Owen, and we've got Annabelle.
You do know there's been other people that have been made knighted, as well as there was the other Chris Whitty. That was a surprise to me as well.
Well, Chris Whitty has the most ironic name since Dennis Wise left Chelsea. That's my view. Let's see if PK's there. PK, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hearing you loud and clear. Happy New Year, and give us your take on Tony, Sir Tony.
Yeah. It's I was thinking about the Balkans, and I'm pretty sure there was something to do with some Muslims were being persecuted.
That's right.
And I think was it Clinton? Him and Clinton were instrumental in trying to stop a genocide with that.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton famously arrived under gunfire, which turned out not to be true. It was another one of her lies.
Sorry, whose lies?
So Hillary Clinton claimed that she arrived in Yugoslavia under heavy gunfire and had to run and duck for cover, but then video footage showed that she arrived rather safely, and it was just another lie.
Publicity stunt.
Yeah.
But I was wondering what was with. I was young then. My memory fails me, but I'm sure those missile strikes were something to do with to protect some Muslims, because there was Croatia, Serbia, and Bosnia Herzegovina, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ethnic groups you've got in that melting pot over there in Yugoslavia, which was meant to be a country for all the southern Slavs.
Yeah.
You have the Catholic Croats, you have the Orthodox Christian Serbs, and you have the Bosnian Muslims.
Yeah.
They're all the same color, they all speak the same language, and they're fighting over a religion that not all of them follow.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they were living next to each other before the war started.
Yeah. And also you've got the ethnic Albanians who are also Muslim but speak a different language and are a different ethnic group, and they probably felt they'd been forced to be part of Yugoslavia when really many of them identify and are ethnically Albanian and would rather have been part of Albania, which was a separate country. So again, it's the problem of drawing a border around several ethnic groups and then not all of them feeling that they're being treated equally.
Well, yeah, within that border. Yeah. It's interesting then, because then you, as it fractured. I mean, what I can't recall. What was the actual initial spark that caused that? The reason is because I'm pretty sure that it was the Serbs. What was the leader?
If history shown us, it's always been
war atrocities, weren't they? They were killing, like taking men off and just shooting them in the back of the head. Like they found mass graves out there. Like the Nazis.
So and the famous one is Srebrenica. But I would say to that, PK, that there were atrocities on all sides.
Yeah, I don't doubt. But
there was heavy propaganda to give the perception that the Muslims were suffering a genocide more so than Orthodox Christians, for example, at the time. And there was a famous picture of the Thin Man, I think they called it, where a very emaciated individual was pictured seemingly trapped inside a wire cage. But in fact, it was the photographer who was behind the fence inside the cage looking out at this thin man. And that was portrayed at the time to say, look, these Muslims are being massacred and genocided. What must we do? We must do something. Now, sending over bombs that are going to fall on Muslims and Christians and everybody, I don't see how that saves Muslims from a genocide. There were gross mistakes made by the UN, who completely mishandled the situation. But we have to be very careful about justifying one atrocity because of another. And as I say, I would have been against invading to save these people.
The United Nations were in there. We know that. I had mates that served out there.
Okay.
And their hands were tied because they could see things happening, and yet they weren't allowed to engage to protect civilians.
Interesting.
It's documented. You find stories about.
So what were they doing there if they weren't allowed to engage?
Well, they call it peacekeep, don't they?
Peacekeeping. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at. It's like they got the front lines and the cities, which are supposed to be sort of protected, and then they still get shelled from outside of the city. The shells are coming in. I mean, it was a really messy war because it was a war on many fronts when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think there wasn't a winner as such, was there? It just. Somehow.
Do you feel that this is an example of the West supposedly intervening in order to help Muslims, and we don't hear about that so much?
Well, that was
the case of false flag, isn't it? They always use to divide and conquer. They'll come in and then they'll either get the Sunnis against the Shias or the conflict somehow. So again,
that wasn't what they were doing though. That wasn't.
It wasn't a false flag. You don't think?
Like that. It wasn't a Iraq type war. The Balkans was a little bit more complicated than that. It was a war in Europe. You know.
I mean, from what I understand, the problem in the Balkans goes back as far as the Ottoman Empire, and the animosity and the seeds of hatred that were sown then lasted the generations. And when communism failed and the Eastern Bloc countries started collapsing, people went back to being religious, and the renaissance, so-called, of Islam and the return to Wahhabism meant that you had Wahhabist or Salafist jihadists heading to Bosnia in particular, and later possibly Kosovo, although not as much, to try and carve out a Muslim state in the middle of Eastern Europe. And the Americans would have thought this is a great idea. The Americans and the Brits, they would want to destabilize, they would want to topple a big, strong ally of Russia.
Which
So,
was the Yugoslavia as a whole.
Yeah. So armed jihadists did arrive from, some of them would have been doing the same thing in Afghanistan, trying to fight the Soviets, and then they came to Europe to fight the Serbs, who were an ally of the USSR. And the same people that fought in that jihad, some of them showed up again 2 decades later in Syria. Veterans of the Bosnian Jihad.
Yeah. I mean, with the Blair going into, we know the dossier was fake. Obviously, that was pushed as being truth, and we now know it was a load of horse manure. Removing Saddam wasn't a nice person. Let's be honest about it. He was a bit of a, well, he was a scumbag, wasn't he? He was a megalomaniac.
He was a dictator, I'd say. Absolute megalomaniac.
Yeah, but if you know, that sort of strength of character, even though he's not nice, there was a strength of character there. I mean, there was a relative stability to that country. Then when the coalition forces went in and they sort of destroyed it, that what's happened since in the Middle East, has it, become less stable, getting rid of these dictators like Gaddafi? The whole region's become less stable than it was. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Is it always the right thing to do?
Saddam was a bit unstable for that region. I would think so, because he was troubling Kuwait, Iran, all the other countries around it.
Well, they had a 10-year war with Iran, didn't they?
It was the 10-year war. Plus, there were over the I think oil. They were fighting the Kuwaitis as well. They were trying to get.
Which country in the Middle East has a stable government?
He invaded Kuwait, didn't he? That was the initial.
He did, but as he would put it, he was invading the part of Iraq that should never have been given to Kuwait, and because these countries were drawn up. Go on.
Yeah, just like Putin saying with Crimea in Ukraine.
Yeah, or Hitler perhaps with the Sudetenland, but these places.
Yeah. Perhaps Northern
They
Ireland.
have their borders drawn up by the imperial powers. And you're going to leave certain people on the wrong side of the border.
Well, you're going to have to create a false flag as well. You see what I mean? You're going to have to create an enemy anyway. So for your presence to be there.
Yeah, but Saddam was creating an enemy from those around him.
But the history of Saddam, he was a CIA agent, right?
Sorry?
You do know the history of Saddam. He used to actually be a CIA agent. Operative, shall I say? Operative.
Well, I don't know about that, but he would have been doing the same thing in his country as the Iranians do in theirs, or any country. They use propaganda to pursue their own interests. You know, what the Western countries do.
So my opinion of
other
Iran,
countries do. That's the game, isn't it?
I think personally, these people are put into place by the elite, and then they're also taken down by them. Yeah, so it's like a false flag type of situation. You see it with Saddam, even with Iran. When I look at my own country, like we've had a revolution 3 times over, and it's like if the government don't play their role or the way they should be, they'll just do another psyop or psychological warfare like against them, and ultimately, so if they're not playing the game they want, the elite, or if they're not playing their role, then they'll do what they did to Soleimani, isn't it? The Iranian general.
Oh, they took him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, if you don't play their game as they want, they will take you. You will be a target. Like
Who's that?
Soleimani,
Who's they?
the elite, the
The
people.
elites of Iran, or do the elites of? I mean, Iran must have its own elites, as every country. Are
No, but
they?
this is what I'm saying. They are playing the game. They are playing. There is someone above the Iranian government that is telling them what to do, but they're part of the whole system, because I believe that it will be overturned. Like the country will be overturned overnight. They've done it 2-3 times before.
Are these people? Okay, are these elites colourless? Are they just white men, or are they all peoples?
No, elite.
Are they in the room with us right now, Mac?
Am I an elite?
The elite government, as in the shadow government, as in
Yeah.
But who are
Well,
they? Is it this is
This
bankers, isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, it's
See,
like,
all the politicians, right? Like going back to
Well, where do we get
Blair
the word
getting-
"sir" from? We've got Sir Tony. Does that make him part of the elite now that he's been knighted?
Well, he's an actor.
Yeah, he's part of the cult.
Go
now.
on, Owen.
They're all actors, right? It's nothing but theatre. Again, what Mac was talking about, like when we talk about the shadow government or whatever, that's the one who's telling whose story it is. They're the one manufacturing the story to begin with, and then the politicians are the one that act it out.
This has been
Okay,
planned
so
out
he's
from-
just a puppet. He's not really powerful, Sir Tony.
1776 also. Yeah, it's been planned from back then. Like,
So-
this
why is everyone upset with Tony then? If he's just a pawn, you know, if he's just a pawn, if he is without control because the elites could have his family killed or whatever, then what?
No,
right
because
do
he's
we-
sitting
what
pretty.
right do
You know,
we have
he sold his soul.
he's in the limelight. We don't. With the other people aren't in the limelight for us to be pointing figures at
Yeah.
them.
But
I'm gonna
if you understand the hierarchy that you've just described to me, okay, and you realise he's a puppet, and you realise he's got no real power, and he's only doing the bidding of others above him, how can we be annoyed that he's weak? I mean, what would you do if you were in, like Julian said earlier on about the, if you're in the, you know, people let atrocities happen in the war, German citizens knew things were happening to the Jews that were bad, but what could you as an individual with a family, would you want to risk going against that because your family would be taken because these people are bloody mental? So you sort of go along for self-preservation.
Yeah.
Good point.
So what you're describing is only half of it, really. I think when you look at it, he's a puppet, but at the same time, he's sitting pretty with everything, you know. And these people are chosen specifically, you know, they're raised for it. They're completely in the whole. That's part of. There's the elites in general, right? And then there's the hidden elites. So there's both.
Now, don't read the word beginning with P on the screen now, but Tony Blair in US P word Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book. Tony Blair was listed in Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book alongside a series of Britain's richest and most powerful.
The rabbit hole.
So,
the rabbit hole.
yeah.
Going down it
If you
tonight.
cannot be bought, if you are a millionaire or a billionaire, I mean, I don't think Tony Blair is a billionaire, but he's a very, very wealthy man. If you cannot be bought, then you can only be blackmailed, right? Is that why the elite and influential people like Tony Blair wind up in this little book, wind up in P-word rings, because that is the only way they can be influenced. And if they're being trapped like that, by whom? We know that Ms. Maxwell has been found guilty this week, but who was she doing it for? That is something we haven't found out yet.
So who is her father?
Well, her late father, who fell off a boat, Robert Maxwell. I mean, he was
Well, he was dodgy because he ripped people
A
off.
very
didn't
dodgy man,
He was a
Yeah.
spy,
to
no?
put it mildly. Yeah, to put
He
it
was
mildly.
he was
Corrupt, totally.
allegedly a spy, though, right?
Yes, he was allegedly a spy.
Country with
I mean,
a star on its flag.
that's correct. Thank you, Owen. And it's even been mentioned in his eulogy. One of the prime ministers of that country said he's done more for our country than can be told.
Jesus.
He's buried in Haifa.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So all these links, don't they? It's like a spider's web. You know, his daughter would have, let's say, she would have possibly been looked after by Robert's influential friends, confidential, whatever. You know,
I can't see why not.
In the family business, you know, in
So
the
it's a-
family.
it's a
Well, they
case of
say that
nepotism. So it's
he
case-
took a shine to Epstein so much that instead of Ghislaine taking over the family business, it was Epstein that took over the family business.
Interesting.
Because if you think about it, blackmail, if blackmail is one hell of a way to control and manipulate the rules that are set by government in certain countries, if you can get certain pawns into power. So you know what I mean? You can dictate policy and like maybe start wars as well, because if you don't do what we say, that picture of that video we've got of you doing something naughty with someone who shouldn't be doing something naughty, who's underage, like, and you know, you can sort of see how it would work, can't you?
You can, PK. But is that more? That must be more effective than threatening to kill people, or is it just easier to entrap people like that? Because I would do anything you told me if you said you were going to kill me. You wouldn't need to trick me into being in a video with something inappropriate going on. But maybe it's entrapment,
they're
isn't it?
already doing that stuff, so it's like
they're already doing it. Okay, Owen, I see. I get you. Interesting.
Yeah, well,
so it's people. Yeah. Well, that's true. They do. Yeah. Sometimes openly. Sometimes not.
I mean, the government. When you're such a powerful government, you can assassinate anybody, can't you? And then if it goes wrong, it's just collateral damage, isn't it? No one gets. You wipe out a whole family because you mistakenly, or the info's wrong or whatever, and which has happened recently in Afghanistan.
Oh gosh, you're right.
And no one is accountable. No one's head goes on the chopping block. It's just like blame is just passed around the round table when it.
That's right.
Past the parcel, but it never rests with anyone.
That's right. I'm going to put another Scottish sir on the screen because I was surprised that he was knighted. I mean, this was many years ago and he's passed away now. But Sean Connery was knighted by the Queen at the investiture ceremony at Hollywood. Now, was he not historically very much against the monarchy? He had been nominated for knighthood in 1997-98, but these nominations were reported to have been vetoed by Donald Dewar owing to Connery's political views. Did something change, or did they relax the rules? Why was a Scottish nationalist and a Republican, someone who wanted to do away with the monarchy, why was he knighted? And why did he accept it if he was a lifelong believer in doing away with the monarchy? Why did he compromise his principles, I wonder?
That is interesting. I didn't know.
But I mean, he's a weird guy. He must be the only man that went from supporting Celtic to supporting Rangers. If you can make that change, you can change anything, can't you?
Well, those two things are supposed to be set in stone, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe he was replaced or cloned or something. I don't know.
It's not the real.
Yeah, Pat Wright is saying Connery was a Scottish nationalist. Yeah. What sort of Scottish nationalist accepts a knighthood from the Queen.
Well, he couldn't have been a real nationalist then. Could he? Or he actually come to see, or there's this answer,
But
which
she's
is,
the
I
Queen
think,
of
very
Scotland too,
plausible.
though, is she not?
Nicola
Go on,
Sturgeon
PK.
is in the SM. Yeah,
Isn't the
maybe
Queen?
he became a nationalist because Nicola Sturgeon been so incompetent. It was like, this is what we're going to have to deal with if we run our own government. Oh my God, he thought,
Maybe.
this.
No, yeah, it's a strange one.
No, but isn't the Queen of Scotland as well? So it doesn't really matter.
Yes, and the SNP, I believe, if they get what they want, they will retain the Queen as the monarch and will be on the coin, etc. That's why I don't really get Scottish nationalism. It's not nationalism in the way that Irish nationalism became Irish republicanism, that wanted a real clean break from the UK.
Where they're trying to be like Canada or Australia.
Yeah, it's kind of nationalism light.
I think it's just a power grab, isn't it? It's just a power grab for the politicians.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe.
we would still have a unified military. You know, the Scottish regiments are a major part of the British.
So
British military.
Why is there no Scottish republicanism then? Are there no elements of Scottish nationalism that would want to be a real independent country?
I don't think there is.
Well, a real independent country would mean hard borders, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You know, plus so many of our families are intertwined. I mean, half of my family, I've got, not half, but Scottish blood in it, and
yeah,
there's so many. I mean, it's a silly argument for the British Isles, I think, separation of Wales and all that, because we're just like one. All right, we have banter between each other, but we're just like a family with so much intermarriage between us all. How would you sort that out? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you lived on the border, if you lived on the border and you worked across the border in Scotland, you lived in England, or you live in Cardiff but you work in Bristol, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You have passport control.
Well, I mean, it is a weird one. Apparently, some people were crossing the border for a New Year's party, but we won't talk too much about that. Just want to talk about the word "sir," and have you heard of Sri Lanka or Sri Lanka? I'm wondering if this word, which I guess must maybe be in Sanskrit, but it's in Greek also, Sri Lanka. The Sri in Sanskrit means beauty, especially of divinities, kings, or heroes. Also an honorific prefix to a proper name from Pi root Kri, to be outstanding, brilliant, masterful, beautiful, found in Greek as Lord and Master. So Sri Lanka, I think, is Sir Lanka, and it's another one of those words that's found its way around the world. I'll just ask Owen if he thinks if I've gone mad.
Yeah, I'm not sure there. Sir, Shri, there's definitely something. But I'm trying to think of, is there any other countries with it?
Yeah, you'd think there'd be at least, or other regions of India maybe, where Sri something, Sri this, Sri that.
Because there's also the Dravidian culture, right? Because there's
yes,
the Indo-Aryan
would they be Dravidian
language
down in Sri Lanka?
Well, this is the thing. The Dravidians, they bear no relation to any of the other language roots. They're completely older civilization than anyone else.
Oh wow! So Sanskrit would be Aryan, right?
Yeah.
Or Indo-European.
Exactly.
So the Dravidians would be before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they again, the Dravidians, I'm not sure where they were spread out over, but there's definitely like North and South India. I'm not sure about Sri Lanka. I know there's a land bridge like underwater, that's only at certain times that the tide is low enough. But when it is, you can walk across.
Yeah. Well, the country where Robert Maxwell was buried in, the root meaning of that word, I believe, comes from Esra, El.
God,
El meaning God, and Esra, wrestled, one who wrestled with God. So I don't know if Esra could mean overpowering someone, and Sri, masterfully, as we see here, masterly, being a master, being powerful. Sri, Sir, Esra, does that three-letter root come from being powerful? Maybe we are stretching it. I know.
No, in Gematria, you're right, because they're all the same value, Sir, and it is.
Yes, Sir, and Esra, and Masara is to wrestle in Arabic as well, wrestling. So yeah, there's something there. There's something there. Look, gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you so much for joining me. There's a Sir on the screen there. So Happy New Year to all of you lot, and I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you. Same to you all.
We will do it all again soon. It's been Lessons for Life.
Thank you.
We were here, and we are gone.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.